With freedom comes the difficulty of choice. You have to choose to go to Mass. You have to choose who you hang out with. Community is mutual knowledge, trust, reliance, and commitment.
What is up, guys? It is Just Like You and Me, podcast 19. Podcast 19.
Not 20.
Not 20. We have...
They wanted to skip, but...
but we have to go in the right order. It's for you guys.
Absolutely.
And we have Jack Franceschi with us. He is the founder of Veni, Vidi, Vici. He's the young adult coordinator for the parish of St. Sebastian's and a smoker of many meats.
Many meats.
Jack, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Mike. Happy to be here.
It was a long drive, too. I'm really...
Super long.
Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, thank you for making the trip out here today.
Dude, just happy to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So, young adult group ministry. Like, it's a growing thing right now.
Yes.
Why do you think it's growing right now?
I think it's growing, and it hasn't always been a thing. I think it's growing right now because the world is changing, and we don't have as many traditions as we used to. The American culture, the zeitgeist, the psyche of the nation is evolving so rapidly and creating so many shifting sands that people are losing a common sense of identity. And without some sort of connecting thread to make life make sense, there's a propensity to do what you've sort of done for youths, which is to keep ministering to them, to keep like, all right, if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know where you're going, we'll throw more events for you. We'll do more stuff.
Yeah.
And you just keep giving in the hopes that people will eventually find their feet. It has its problems, because if you just keep doing the same thing, you're not actually going to teach people how to find their feet. Just going to keep them sort of on the hook, so to speak.
We kind of talked about this with a guest that we had on a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about a girls group that she started, and how we were, one of the way that the topic shifted was, it was sort of the antithesis to social media, where, as you kind of just said, like your group, we make groups to help us find our way. And social media is just sort of like a platform that you go, and they don't really show you which way to go. You're just kind of left out in the wasteland and expected to, you just get shown different things all over your feed. Things that don't really correlate or correspond with one another. It's a bunch of randomness jumbled together.
Bombarded with new information and exciting, interesting looking things.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really like about your group is it's catered to young adults.
Mm-hmm.
So people in college, out of college, finding their way. And we have, I remember growing up in church, you have like VBS, you have other like high school ministries and stuff like that. You're always, like, your parents say, hey, I'm going to drop you off here, and you're going to do that.
It's just kind of assumed you'll go.
Yeah, because they're literally dropping you off. Some
You
of the
don't have
times.
an option.
It's like, oh, you're going here today. It's like, oh, fine, Mom. But with adults, especially in the Catholic Church, it's very easy to feel lost. You want to be with the world. When you go to college, you see these frat guys, you see these girls hanging out, going to parties, all that other stuff, and you kind of get lost in that crowd because you're like, oh, everyone else is doing it. I can do the same thing. And being around like-minded people who are trying to grow in their faith and be a better person, and having that group, that's huge.
It's massive, because the ages of 17, 18, 19 is right when so many people get the training wheels of life taken off. Is now, like, going to Mass isn't something that you just have to get dressed for and then someone else will drive you and you go and you come back. You have to choose to go to Mass. You have to choose who you hang out with, how to spend your time. Like, it's kind of a double whammy, because the training wheels come off and now your family doesn't do everything for you, and you have all of these extra responsibilities and goals piled on top of you, where either you're in college, you're going to college for the first time and you're in a new place, or you're expected to be doing something equivalent to college. So even if you stay at home, you get a bunch more pressure from family and friends to be like, all right, but like, what are you doing instead of college? If you're going to try to be outside the mold or take a gap year or whatever, like, what are you doing instead? And with freedom comes sort of I don't want to say too many options, but with freedom comes the difficulty of choice.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's what I was talking about. It was like, especially with social media,
Yeah.
there is sort of like a difficulty of, well, there is a difficulty of choice. It doesn't really seem like it is. There is a difficulty of choice. If you're on YouTube scrolling and you have hundreds of videos that are on your feed, or Instagram, there's hundreds to thousands of pictures that you might be looking at every day. Which one do you choose to look at? Which one speaks to you? It's a lot harder because you're just kind of like the judge of everything that's being thrown at you, rather than being in a group of like-minded individuals that, might direct you in a more direct path, I guess.
Yeah.
For lack of better terminology.
Yeah, you're a group of one, which makes it way easier to shift you off course or to sway your opinion.
Now, the group is called Veni, Vidi, Vici.
Yes.
And can you explain that name?
Well, as the sign shows, Veni, Vidi, Vici was a quote from Caesar. Famously, he was off doing war, as you do when you're Caesar, and conquering some people. And he's famous for writing a letter back where he said, "I came, I saw, I conquered." Just to say that it was that much of a decisive victory, that he just came, walked all over people, and there wasn't even anything exciting to talk about. And a lot of three reasons. So there's that. There's the sort of the historical element. Saint Sebastian's is named after the saint who he was a Roman centurion, I think, in about 300 AD. So not long after Christianity was founded. And at the time, it was not really that cool to be Catholic.
Yeah.
I'm not totally clear on I'm not a history buff. So dates and times or get a little fuzzy for me. But I know that it wasn't popular. So he actually wound up being martyred for his faith because he held at the same time wanting to be a good Roman soldier, sort of the pride for his country, and his Catholic faith. And when he was asked which one to give up, he held on to his faith, and he was martyred, shot full of arrows for it. So kind of their version of a firing squad, the best they could do.
Yeah, it's a very painful way to go. That's using history and remembering history and the people that came before. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Marrying the two together.
What's the third reason?
Third reason? The third reason is because I think it reflects a not so commonly known sort of element of the church, which is that there are three different names for people on earth, in purgatory, and in heaven. And that is the church militant, the church suffering or penitent, and the church triumphant. And I picked the name because I liked the confluence of so many different elements, and the fact that with the three terms, I came, I saw, I conquered, I wanted to pair that with soldiers of Christ, witnesses of faith, and victors in heaven.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's incredible.
I loved it, and when I had the idea, I couldn't not use it.
Yeah.
And I also knew that merch would be way easier.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a thing.
You can go online and just look at Veni, Vidi, Vici.
Exactly.
We can get everyone free shirts.
Discount code right here.
Well, I really especially like it too because, as you said, it was sort of Caesar coming back. I think it's the invasion of Gaul, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think you're right.
One of the things that I think he was saying, it was kind of like a hit on the Galicians, right? Where he was saying this was simple, this was easy.
Yeah. And
so many times we find that is really the true recipe of life is typically the more simple that you keep things, the simpler. I'm not going to say that, but the simpler that you keep things, usually the easier life will be for you, and the better. And that's what we have to find. I think, especially with groups, is you're looking for the groups that make your life easy, that keep your life simple, right?
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because recently I've been talking with some people. Like Mike said, a lot of the people in the group, the age range of 18 to technically young adults cap out 35 to 39, depending on who you ask. But especially down towards the younger age, 18, there's a lot of people who are just going off to college. And I mean, so I was talking with some of the people who are going off to college or who are thinking about it and who are seeing like just how difficult it is to stay Catholic without a solid group. It's easier to not be Catholic than it is to be Catholic at that point. Is with everything that's going on, it's easier to just not be Catholic, so you don't do it. Even people who have had a, you could say cradle Catholics or people who've had a perfect track record, like they figure, no, like I'm gonna keep doing this. It's like when when I went to college, I continued to stay Catholic thanks to my sister, who introduced me to the community immediately. My freshman year was her senior year, so she like introduced me to all her friends, was like, talk to these people, go to these things, show up. So I still didn't exactly have much of a choice, but I was happy for it because I had already decided that I wanted to. But one habit that didn't stick around, like pre-college to post-college, my family used to do a heavy cleaning day, is what we called it, on Fridays. We do half a day of schoolwork, and then we would clean the whole house, top to bottom, vacuum, mop, bathrooms, kitchen, everything.
Yeah.
And I thought that going off to college, it would be the same. Like life, nothing's going to change. I'm going to keep up all the same habits.
Yeah.
I have not done a heavy cleaning Friday.
It's like childhood trauma.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's taking your habits from growing up under your parents, that's supposed to be homeschooled.
Oh.
It's the same thing just about every single day, and you're used to something.
Yeah.
Getting thrown in a huge pool of people being college, you're just lost. Like when I had that freedom, I'm like, oh, I talked about on the other podcast. I'm like, oh, I can drink now.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I can stay out late.
I don't have to tell anyone where I am.
Yeah, like I can. I'm an adult. I'm doing whatever I want.
Yeah.
And those groups, like I was a part of Root Catholic at the University of Akron. I didn't go to the University of Akron, but Nora actually brought me into that group.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in that group's a huge reason why I'm still Catholic today. I had that same thoughts. I'm like, Catholics, man, it's so hard. Like there's so many like rules, and gotta go to church every weekend. Like I just want to just chill. Like it's easier. Mm-hmm. It's easier not to. And having the structure with hanging out with those people, they're like, oh, we're gonna go pray today. We're gonna go to adoration. All right, we're going to church Sunday. I went to church with Nora every day for months. I'd meet her after work.
Wow.
On Sundays and go to church. I'll take like a 30-minute nap. I had a little chair. It was like the best setup. But having those people at that time in my life really, saved me from falling away.
Yeah.
It's way easier to fall away, and that's the beauty of that group. Another thing I wanted to talk about too is the people you hang out with. There's always that quote: "You're the sum of your 5 closest friends."
Yeah.
If you're hanging around people that have good values or moving towards something that you believe in, you will become better from that. If you're hanging with people who really don't care about you or don't have good values, eventually that's going to bleed into you. You won't realize it right away.
Right, but it'll rub
But
off.
it does. It does. Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And so how is Veni Vidi structured? So I know that we hang out on Tuesdays after adoration.
Mm-hmm.
Was there I know there had to be a thought into that.
Oh, of course. So V cubed, it's way easier to say V cubed. It's then Veni Vidi Vidi every time you have to say it. But V cubed, I had to pick a day. I wanted it to be a weekly habit, a weekly pattern, because consistency builds stability. And I wanted to pick a day that naturally had some kind of prayer, some kind of grounding element. And at St. Sebastian's, Tuesday is it was the natural pick because they do adoration for the entire day. Mm-hmm. So morning mass happens, and then they expose the Blessed Sacrament, and the whole day there's adoration until it closes at 8 p.m. And that's when we meet. So right around 7:30 or whatever, they start doing benediction, and adoration wraps up, and then we meet immediately after. And it just makes it so effortless to go and do like a holy hour, or just even stop in just for that. Is you're already going to be there for the time after. Why not show up 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour early to just go get that? And it was the easy choice for me, because I know that wanting to start this group, wanting to have it do well and succeed and create a lot of value for the young adults in this community, I knew it had to be founded in prayer first, like first and foremost. God's hands have to be involved. He has to be the main part of it, because if I or anything that I do is the linchpin that holds up the group, then the minute I snap, the whole thing is going to come tumbling down. Like, God has to be the main supporting pillar.
It's beautiful. I love that it's right before or right after adoration.
Yeah,
because you can, if you get there even earlier, you can go to confession. You can go to confession, sit with Jesus for an hour. Anybody who has not been to adoration, it is probably the single greatest thing on this earth. It's just, you can't even describe the feelings you get when you're there.
Yeah.
People think we're crazy, but I promise you, sit there for an hour, don't think, and just let the Lord speak. Change your life.
Yeah. I was going to say one of the things I really like about it is, especially the way that you're structuring it like that, is that you have this like set time of silence, right? And so people are sitting there in silence and just trying to think of like, surround themselves into meditation, and hopefully that leads to some sort of like contemplative prayer. And that gets capped out by this like the joy of camaraderie afterwards, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone is there together in silence, and then there's camaraderie and joy, and there's laughter, and there's talking, and there's food, right?
There is food, yeah.
That's always like one of the big draws for a lot of these groups, is like you have to have food because you need to be able to like feed them. Like you're feeding them spiritually and physically. It's like people go there and you really are getting all of your needs all at once.
With these college-age kids, man, they want anything, any free food. Like,
free food, they'll take it.
I'll be there. No, it's beautiful. And so we were going for a little while, and then we started this podcast, and that kind of took a lot of our time. And when you had
you.
I want to come back, because now Tuesdays are like when I go see my family.
Yeah.
And when you had the Halloween party, and I remember when it first started, there was like a handful of people, people we all knew, which is cool. We got to see them an additional time, and I came, and there's so many people there. The house was full.
He saw. He came and he saw, and then
I conquered. It was beautiful. I was like, wow, like you're doing it, and it starts small. It may feel at times like, is this worth it? Am I doing the right thing? Especially when you're just contemplating by yourself. But it's beautiful to see how this is turning out. I'm so excited to see where it continues to go.
Yeah, me too. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it's interesting to see so what are your plans like going forward with this? Do you plan on continuing this mission? I'm gonna call it a mission, and do you have any others that you have kind of planned that you want to do?
So I'm a very future-oriented person. I love thinking about like future plans or game planning different things. So looking forward, I definitely have. I've probably too many plans to talk about. I'd love to talk about all of them, but I do intend on continuing with this for a while. I think everyone needs something to keep them going. Like everyone needs a worthy cause, and right now this is my worthy cause. And it is a target-rich environment for next steps and things to be done to help improve things and make things better. One of the areas of improvement that I'm looking at is creating a way to transmit sort of the core principles of what we're doing to other groups and other places. Because we've already had a couple of people who have said, like, wow, this is amazing. This is incredible. How could we have this somewhere else? Because they're not here, and they miss it, and they want it. And like, I'm like, that's a brilliant question. That's a great point. Is how much, I don't want to say like how much value does this have if it never leaves here, but really, like, if you create something good, you want to be able to pass it on. And the people who have something good want to be able to pass it on. And if it stops here and no one is able to pass it on or take it with them, I think that it has maybe limited or less value than something that is truly transmittable.
I think one thing that's really interesting about your group is, I mean, just this goes with the name again. Like, I love Veni, Vidi, Vici because there's so many different ways that you can extrapolate meanings out of that simple kind of paraphrase.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is like, comes from a general who is the leader of an army.
Yeah.
And, this is one of the things about your group is like we're trying to unite people to become soldiers for Christ, right?
Yes.
And an army isn't much of an army if it's only one division.
Mm.
And so it's like, how do you go about creating more divisions, right? Or more regiments, eventually, and like just building that in different places, and the thing that's really cool about that vision is like all of those armies are united towards the same goal, right? We all have one general, right? Who's obviously Christ in this sort of like way of thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's a really key thing that you have to continue to think about is like, how do I spread this? How do I create more divisions, as a colonel for Christ or whatever, for lack of a better term.
Ben, Colonel for Christ.
Oh yeah, I'm a major in the Army of Christ.
No,
Got my promotion.
I think it's something that definitely can spread from parish to parish, and there's like we kind of talked about. It's not a common thing in the beginning to have those kind of groups, to have Catholics come together and it not like you do have those moments in prayer, but it's also that camaraderie part. It's building that community.
Yes.
A church back in the day used to be just an actual community. You knew all these people that helped you all the time.
Yeah.
It's only really who you talk to. With how the world works now, you have social media. You're connected to people all across the world, different views, and everything gets misconstrued. Like Ben was saying, you can be scrolling. You're seeing every kind of thing that ever could exist on your phone, and you have no idea what's going on. Your worldview is just warped into just chaos.
I remember, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but this is just to add to that point that you just made because it's hilarious. I remember there used to be a trend on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever where like people would just do the most random thing and film it to just say, this is the first time you've ever witnessed this. So it'd be like someone would have a bucket and they'd put a bunch of Barbie dolls and then they'd pour beans on it. They're like, this is the first time anyone has ever put Barbies into a bucket and poured beans on top of it while singing the Ave Maria.
Yeah.
And it was just like, random stuff. That is the nature of social media. Like, it's there to take everything and smash it together, right?
Or if you want to put our tinfoil hats on, you can say it's just a way for us not to be individual thinkers. It's to think as a group, to think chaotically, to have like that trend, don't let them know what you're thinking next. And all these kids, remember when TikTok came out? Everyone just wanted to do all these dances, develop a new dance, develop a new trend. And it's like, yeah, it could be funny or cool for the second, but how is that bettering you in any way? When you go to get for a job interview, like, all right, what are your qualifications? Well, I can gritty so well. It's like it's like it doesn't do anything for you, and that's why I'm scared for the lower generations. Like they don't have any true skills. I mean, the boomers all talk about it like, oh, they don't do anything now, but it's like it's kind of true. Like there's a trend too. You talked about silence. Someone invented a new thing. It's called a silent walk. Okay, it's going on a walk without your phone, no earbuds, no podcast, just walking by yourself. You're like, she's like, it was crazy. I was walking and 2 minutes in, it was so difficult. I didn't know what to do, and then I got in this flow state. I'm like, it's walking. Like, you ever sat by yourself and not been? It's sad, and I love like this group. What you're doing with that because it's like you said, it's the antithesis of it, like Ben said.
Yeah. And I loved the fact that you identified the sort of militaristic background or focus flavor of the group is that was also definitely intentional. I grew up in it was a military family, not in the sense that we were still traveling around, but that my dad was Air Force and he went to Air Force Academy, so he was an officer, and like was an engineer. And when you pair military and engineer together, you get a very particular way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that like cause and effect, and will honor your choice, and a couple other things is like understanding that the world works a certain way, and that if you want to be able to achieve anything great, you have to have a team behind you to do it. Is you can't do anything like really great alone.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's completely baked into who I am, and that's also baked into how the group operates.
And you probably have a really good understanding of life is better when you take the orders and accept them that are given to you, right? And you know,
Yes.
you're given a ministry by God, and like that is a very simple order. Spread my word, right? Like that is an order that he
Yeah.
gives to every one of us.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, you have your own way about how you'll go about and complete the order, but you take it and you accept it nonetheless.
The Great Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And I had another point that I was going to bring up. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, just going back to the whole silence thing, because silence is so important. I remember I saw this tweet once where this guy was like, you know, what if, like, you know, it was like some tech guy from UCLA or something like that. He's like, you know, guys, you know, I had this thought, like, you know, what if we just gathered like a big group of friends, you know, we just talked, just enjoyed ourselves and didn't record it as like a podcast or try to monetize or anything like that. What if we just like talked as friends, you know? And the comments underneath were like, you know, big tech guy from California discovers friends are actually
Discovers conversation.
discovers conversation. And that's my favorite thing about it is like there's so many things that are going on today where like we are rediscovering things.
Yeah.
Like it's a crazy that like silence is a rediscovery. It's crazy that conversations are a rediscovery, right? Like these are like basic life things that everyone needs that really paint life in this very simple picture of like happiness. You know, you follow the simple things in life, you will become a happy individual. I really, truly, honestly believe in many regards. You know, there's so many things out there with social media that overcomplicate your life purposefully.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you kind of narrow the things down in your life and you narrow down the interests and the goals and the passions and stuff like that, you know, you set yourself into a group of people, of like-minded individuals. You're all striving for the same thing, holiness. And that's a beautiful thing, and that will make you joyful. You know? So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
really,
what
really great
what
things.
have these, like, what has been one of the hardest things starting this group? Because we've talked about how awesome it's been, and it sounds like it's been just butterflies and rainbows, but I know there's always hardship with anything that's good. Has there been anything you've experienced?
Well, definitely. It hasn't all been easy. Hardest thing. Towards the beginning, you mentioned, like you said, it was just a handful of people, and like at the beginning, there was like maybe 6 people who came, and like me and you and Nora and my sister were 4 of them. Like
Yeah.
it was it was basically just us.
Yeah.
And before it really got going, there was definitely a lot of internal resistance, a lot of doubt about whether like what I was doing was working, whether it was good or worthwhile. And like once we started getting more people, that sort of, you know, doubt was set aside, allayed a little bit. But the hardest thing has been communicating what the group really stands for. Honestly, the biggest and the most consistent uphill battle has been trying to tell people what it is that we do and dispersing misconceptions about what we don't do. We started by talking about the fact that young adult ministry has been on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
But not everything that has been attempted has been good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is before coming on, I went and I looked up. I was like, when did young adult ministry start? Or and I searched that, and I searched, is there young adult ministry in other countries? And I found some interesting things. World Youth Day was founded in 1998. That was the first one.
When?
1998. First World Youth Day, I think. 20.
Okay.
25 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I was born.
Didn't realize it was that new.
Yeah, like I thought it was like much older.
Yeah.
But that's fairly recent, and that's the youth program. And I remember growing up is that there was no young adult stuff. Like there was youth stuff, and then you became an adult. And growing up, the social media stuff was all about like, oh, guys, I'm tired of adulting today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the language of young adult and young adult ministry didn't exist. Like I genuinely think that this is something like mostly out of the last, I'd say, last 20 years, certainly, and then increasing more, is with the rise of, I don't want to say the industry, but some people treat it like a job. So with the rise of the young adult industry, everyone is searching to find an identity of like, what does this mean? What is this for us? And there's a lot of resistance from people who aren't young adults, the people who didn't experience the sort of like lost nature that we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The last two generations, they didn't have this problem, so they don't understand what we mean and what we're talking about and what we need and what we're looking for and what we do.
Yeah, they think we're fine. Like I trying to explain to my dad what it's like growing up with a actual cell phone and social media and how you interact with people. It's completely different than what they experience, and you see people losing their identities because they're just thrown just a bunch of things that think, oh, I should be this, I should be this, I should be this, and they don't know who they are anymore.
Oh my
and
gosh.
that's why this is so important, is we need to have a path. We need to go, oh, okay, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And back in the day, when you got your ministry through like high school, and people were, they knew who they were. They're like, okay, I'm going to train to do this and just go on and do this. And we see how many people we see going into college, graduating after like 5-6 years and not having any path, because college is now just a party time rather than going there, getting your degree, and then going to work. They have no idea what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew someone in college who, my senior year, they were about to graduate, and someone asked them, like, you know, oh, what are you going to do after graduating? And they were like, I don't really know. Like, I don't know what I want to do with my degree, so maybe I'll just get a master's.
Oh, you know what? I have a good amount of debt. You know what?
Pile
Let's
more
get some
on.
more.
Hang off my dad. Let's just add some more. Yeah, I was gonna say this is like kind of extrapolating what you're saying a little bit. You know, how often do you hear in the modern world that something is like tailored to your personal experience, like social media, some sort of like app, some sort of game, your car, your house, everything that everyone does now. They try to make it personalized to your personal experience. And that has a couple of different effects, I think. One of them is that it kind of separates you from everyone else. Where like now you're isolated from the rest of the world. Like a company's trying to treat you like an individual, which is fine, right? Like there is a good kind of aspect behind that because we all deserve to be treated like individuals. But at the same time, when everything in your life starts to become more personalized to just your experience, you kind of lose out on the communal aspect of life, and you become a little bit more isolated from the world, where, you know, people play video games, they're on social media, they don't want to hang out with groups, people aren't even in relationships anymore, people aren't getting married, that sort of stuff. You know, like, it's really interesting, the effect that you see, especially COVID. I think COVID had a really big effect on that too, where like everyone is becoming like more and more isolated on social media. You start seeing this like growing trend of like self-care, whatever the heck that is. People become more selfish. Like, you know, you need to love yourself more, but you don't need to love other people. You need to love yourself above everyone else and anything else. Like, it's interesting. It's a phenomenon. And it's not how it was for the majority of history. You know, your group is, again, it's sort of like the antithesis to that, right?
Yeah, is in a world of global communication, we've never been more separated, either from each other or ourselves.
That might be how we have to end the podcast. That was absolutely beautiful. This has been a fantastic conversation. We'll definitely have you on again. I'm so excited to see where your group goes, what you're able to do. And I know that 'cause your group's so good, they're all going to watch this through. So thank you, all the...
Jack will definitely be playing this at the next Tuesday meeting.
There will be a quiz.
There'll be a quiz. How many times did we say or like or use any filler words?
Now,
I need to know.
before we head out, this is something that I kind of want to incorporate a little bit more. But I mean, if people want to learn more about your group, do you have something out there you think that you can point people to? Or do you have a resource that you think people should read that kind of coincides with the idea and the identity of your group?
Something to read that identifies with the idea of the group.
Yeah, we're trying to incorporate, more calls to action, especially at the end of the podcast. So.
Calls to action.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, so I can give you some place to look for some resources, and I can definitely give you a call to action, because it's the last thing that I want to add about the group.
Yeah.
So if you go to St. Sebastian website, you can look and dig through the menus and find somewhere. You can find there's a website about us, and I say somewhere because honestly, it's not organized the best. I'm not in direct control of that. The website looks beautiful, but it doesn't work the way my brain works. So, or anyone else's.
It's not personalized to Jack's personal
It's not
experience.
personalized to my personal experience, and it should be. But you can find St. Sebastian's. I think it's in either in faith or formation, young adults, and you can find a little tidbit about us there. There's a link to actually sign up for. I have a weekly newsletter that's mostly directed at keeping in touch with the people who come and are a part of our community.
We will find that link and put it in the
I'm
description.
going to link it in for everybody. I'll do the hard
There
work for
you
you guys.
go. Perfect. And then I would say the last, the call to action that I would give, and this is something that is super core to what we do at V Cubed, is to develop your understanding of community. I've been asking the question, what is community, for about 10 to 12 years. That's one of the driving things behind why I created the group and the way that I did it. Because we always say in the catechism and in other places that we are made for community and that we come from a community, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But they never give a definition of what community is. We know we're made for it, but we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So after years and years and years of searching and still not having an answer, last night before coming on, I was thinking about it more. And if you ask me what is community, what could you do to realistically work on building community? Because that's what's missing. That's why young adult stuff exists, is because we don't have community and we are made for it and we long for it. I think community is mutual knowledge, trust, reliance, and commitment. And I could give a whole talk on that, but I won't. We're out of time.
That's
beautiful.
Fantastic. And this has been Podcast 19. Thank you, Jack.
Woo!
Thank you, everybody. Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next week.